That was a big wake-up call for me, that love is not just a feeling, but love is a decision to love your spouse.
As the more we connected, the more we understood how each other was feeling and so on, the layers of hurt and pain started to fall away.
I was born in Malaysia. I somehow ended up as going to a Catholic school, went to Mass on my own. So I did a lot of things pretty much on my own. And then I moved on and I went to Singapore to work.
I grew up in Singapore. I came over to Australia in 1976 when I was 15 years old. I met Lolita back in about 93, but really before I met her in person, I was introduced to her by my first cousin who used to work with her.
I got a letter from Ben introducing himself, saying that his cousin has put my name card in the letter to him.
Lolita and I, after we got introduced, we started writing to each other. So this is in the days before there was decent internet, So we were writing and sharing sort of little bits of stories with each other. Nothing was too sort of serious or anything. And we were doing this for nearly 2 years.
I think it was 92 that I said, okay, I'll go down to Brisbane and have a look, visit Brisbane. And that was the first time I met face-to-face with Ben.
We met up then, but we already felt like we'd known each other for a long time. So we had a fairly whirlwind sort of relationship, courtship. Pretty much got married within 6 months.
Then we had a daughter, Sarah. And then I had to come to Australia.
She actually was born in Singapore because there were some immigration sort of issues trying to get Lolita over here. By the time we got it sorted, it was too late, for her to come over. So the start of our marriage, in that sense, was a bit stressful, because, Lolita had a very young baby over in Singapore. I was trying to go over there to be with her, but I also had a job over here. So, and then she fortunately got a job in Brisbane through contacts with her company in Singapore. So she was able to, on the good side, come straight into a good job in Brisbane, but we had a very young child.
Leaving my good friends, basically my good friends behind, and then came over to Australia, not knowing anyone, not knowing the culture here a lot. So it was quite a stressful time for me, raising a family, then working full-time. So it was quite tough in the sense that I had no one to turn to, like a friend that I could call up and say, just to talk about things or issues.
The childcare was quite an expensive sort of option. My mother was always very happy to help, but it was her first grandchild, and sometimes she overhelped, if you know what I mean. So that created some tensions between, Lolita and I.
She overhelped us, and I really felt like I was not being treated like a capable person running my own family. So I would rather that, she step back a bit and let us both decide, rather than telling Ben to tell me what to do. That really annoyed me. And at first I tolerated, because coming from an Asian background, you have to respect your elders. You have to give in to your elders. I did not do anything. I did not say anything. I just keep stewing and stewing all the years. So I think it showed in my behavior in that sense that sometimes I just continued working rather than coming home. Like, home wasn't a happy place for me.
The stress of being a young family with a new job, trying to deal with my mother, some of those things started to create like tension within the marriage. And also within my job, working in alcohol and drugs in those days, in the alcohol and drug sort of world, and then later on in the mental health world, it's a very kind of stressful area of work to be in. So I'd come back home from work and I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just needed time to myself to just decompress, just to get rid of all the nonsense, at work, the politics at work and so on. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to be present, for my wife and my child. Unfortunately, that had an impact on our relationship. Like Lolita thought I wasn't caring about her, that I was only interested in me, which is partly true. I mean, I was I was into like survival mode for myself.
Then when the second child came along, I made the decision that I will resign from my job and take full-time carer role to my second child for 1 year. And I did that. I took a year off. I went back to work, but that was on a part-time basis. And at one stage, I was doing 3 different part-time jobs, and it was quite stressful. I was tired. Ben wasn't helping out a lot. He was doing his own thing. And I practically told myself, I will carry on no matter what. I will just shoulder on. And I did not voice my disappointment, my sadness, and I just felt very lonely in the marriage. I had no one to turn to. Like the friends or colleagues that I have, it was just colleagues rather than friends, good friends. Even though I was going to church, I was praying, but nothing really happened.
Then later on I took up golf, and that was and still is my sort of main hobby now. But again, it was time away from the family, and that didn't go down too well, with Lolita. So, but like I said to her, when I'm rollerblading or when I'm playing golf, I'm not thinking about work or the problems I have, with mortgage or anything like that. I'm just focusing on my task, on my game or anything like that. So, and this kind of pattern of behavior, continued for quite a long time.
I came from a broken family. I grew up in a family. There was a lot of shouting, quarreling, like on a daily basis, and I really did not want that for my family. So for me, my way of reaction was just a passive aggression towards Ben.
She wouldn't talk to me for a week or something like that, So it's never been our pattern to yell at each other. That's not our style. I used to yell at the kids a bit myself, and from time to time, but never at each other. So we never had that way of releasing the pent up sort of stress. I mean, what would happen is that we would, eventually one of us would say, "What's going on?" And talk, and then it would come out like that. But that would be after like nearly a week of no talking and just silence. That style of conflict.
I wasn't prepared to tell Ben how unhappy I was in the marriage. I did not show how my true feelings are, because sometimes I just think to myself at that time that he's doing it just because he has to do it, not because he wanted to do it, but he has to do it. It's like an obligation rather than something he's doing out of concern, out of love for us. And my two kids, like their perception of their dad at that stage wasn't that great too. Like they knew that he was not around a fair bit. I think I was like a glue that glue everything together in our family life.
I've always been like a traditional kind of Catholic background, so that was something I could rely on even in the tough times in my life. My faith mightn't have been as strong as it is now, but it was still there. It was the constant stabilizing force in my life. So I went to church every Sunday, or Saturday, played my music, involved in music ministry. I had friendship groups in church. So all of that kept me kind of grounded a little bit through all of that. We were at Mass and couples stood up in the pulpit and talked about a marriage encounter weekend. And I thought, this is what we need. We need to do something for our marriage. I suppose maybe deep down inside I knew that things were not going really well, but I was kind of like in denial a little bit.
I have heard of marriage encounter from my friends in Singapore for many, many years, but I wasn't prepared to go to the weekend, because in my heart I thought it's beyond repair, and I was on the verge of walking out at that time. I was very unhappy, and I remembered I said to him, "Are you sure you want to attend this weekend? You'll be foregoing your golf weekend. Are you going to do that?" That was my question to him when he asked me to attend the weekend. And when we attended the weekend, I did not give that retreat any hope of, like I could, make my marriage a better marriage.
But thankfully she hung in there. And even though the weekend sort of started slowly for us, the retreat was very important. And then we slowly started to learn ways of actually communicating more deeply. And by around Saturday night of the weekend was when we had the first of our little breakthroughs, because for the first time I understood where Lolita was coming from, and she started to understand where I was coming from.
I finally understood where Ben was coming from and what stresses him. And also I got to say out my feelings in an environment that is not being judged, not being attacked, like for feeling that way. I was able to deep into my own feelings about certain issues. There were issues that we as a couple is a no-go zone for discussion during our 15 years of marriage. It was the start for us to journey into a healing relationship.
One of the really important things we learnt about was feelings are neither right nor wrong. And that's actually very freeing to be able to share your feelings with someone and know that they understand that, it's not bad that I'm feeling angry. It's not bad that I'm feeling sad, and just by getting through that first step, it opened the door for them to then understand how you were feeling. And we worked through a process of building empathy with each other, learning how to see the world from your spouse's point of view. So slowly, we started to understand each other a bit more. And then there's a few things that we learned that you really like. For example, that love is a
decision. Love is a decision. Yes. That was a big wake-up call for me, that love is not just a feeling, but love is a decision. You make the decision to love, and that sometimes you might be angry or you might be sad. You still make the decision to love your spouse.
As the more we connected, the more we understood how each other was feeling and so on, the layers of hurt and pain started to fall away. Or Lolita, for example, got a different understanding of why I was doing certain things. So like it wasn't against her, it wasn't about her, it was more like my own issues at work and that sort of stuff.
After the weekend, I consciously make an effort that we will do things as a couple. We called, our coupleness is not defined just by the job that we do. So we do things as a couple.
I think through ME and then through prioritizing communication, they learned more just about knowing how to compromise, knowing that compromise is okay. It was that learning to sort of bend and compromise and accept that how you experience the situation is not how everyone experienced the situation. And they were able to learn through that. And yeah, they became a lot more communicative and a lot more open to understanding how the same situation could be perceived differently.
The marriage was something that built up sort of slowly, and it manifested itself in the married singles lifestyle.
What really touched me then was that Ben asked for forgiveness. To ask for forgiveness, even to say sorry, is not a word that is said frequently. So I really was touched when Ben asked for forgiveness.
I even find it hard to say I'm sorry. But after the first weekend, I learned how to say I'm sorry. But after the second weekend, I learned how to ask for forgiveness. And the gap between being able to say I'm sorry and to ask for forgiveness is huge. Because when you say I'm sorry, it's like coming from you, like I'm sorry. But when you ask for forgiveness from someone, you're actually giving the power to them
to forgive.
To forgive or not to forgive you. And that is very, very hard to do, but very important to do. I actually started to do a lot more housework for a start.
Without being asked.
Yeah. Because to me, doing stuff isn't that, like, it's neither here nor there. You know, it's not that important. But when I did things for Lolita, that was her love language.
I felt love when Ben did things for me without being asked to do, like opening the door or taking up the garbage or just vacuuming or taking out the dishes or hanging the clothes.
Are you searching for fulfillment? Discover true happiness. Stay tuned to Shalom World.